girlies, and welcome back to the pod. Today we are talking all about applying to college, where I'm going to college, and things people don't really talk about with applying to college, slash what I wish I knew before. But before we get into that, let's chat all about my week. So this past week was my senior spring break. So super fun, super exciting. I originally wasn't going to go anywhere, but I ended up going to Punta Cana with my mom, which is in the Dominican Republic, which I had never been to. But so that was fun. We were at the beach all week, which was really nice. And then also, I heard back from the rest of my colleges just all this week. Some things a little sad. That's okay because I know where I'm going and it's a school that I really like, so I'm excited. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't post an episode last week because that would have been over spring break, and I was like, no, break means break. But yeah, so never mind. I'm not gonna say that. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say. I feel like this week I didn't really do much, I guess. Not really excited about going back to school, but I only have, I think, maybe 3 more weeks of school. Maybe 4, probably. Okay, let's just say like a month. Because I think I just have the rest of April, pretty much. And then after that, I have the first 2 weeks of May are all my exams, AP exams, whatever. And then the last 2 weeks of May, I have my internship, which is not really like school. And then I graduate, and then it's summer, and then, yay, fun times. So, almost done. Underwear should be more than just an item we mindlessly slip on every day, right? Well, Parade, they think so too. Because when I buy a pair of Parade underwear, I am buying a sustainably made pair of underwear that is super soft, but is also helping to give to organizations that help others. What's not to love? Y'all, let me just say this. The high-rise thong in Replay is a game changer. It is so soft that I can't even feel it on my body. From extra small to triple XL, Parade's inclusive sizing means that you will have zero trouble finding that perfect bralette or pair of underwear. Did I mention they're all about sustainability? Parade crafts their signature styles with super soft, certified recycled yarns. Plus, all their products come in biodegradable packaging. And for every Parade purchase you make, they give back to organizations that support reproductive rights, racial equity, and LGBTQ+ communities. Upgrade your top drawer now. Go to yourparade.com/girlygirl and use code girlygirl to get 20% off your first order. That's yourparade.com/girlygirl, code girlygirl for 20% off your first order. Okay, y'all. Now, for the big reveal. Oh my god, where is Carmen going to college? Oh my gosh. Wow. I hope you're on the edge of your seat. Okay. Actually, I just realized nobody really knows unless you looked at my Instagram bio, which then you're like, okay. But I'm going to William and Mary. Woo! Yay! I don't sound excited, but I actually am excited. So William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, aka middle of nowhere-ish, I would say. It's a very small town. Very small. Like, I thought where I lived was small. No, this is really small, but that's okay. That's okay. You're like, Carmen, why'd you choose William and Mary? Well, honestly, I feel like this is a horrible reason. But so in Williamsburg, there's like colonial Williamsburg, which it's like literally people dressed up as colonial people, and they have like this little area with like colonial structures, houses, different buildings. And when I saw just a colonial person, it was like the meanest looking old lady just walking around. Like she had a bonnet and a dress. I was like, yes, yes, love. That was what sold me. I'll be honest. That was what sold me. No, I'm kidding. But I actually do really like this school. It's very pretty. And the people, the vibe is good. Um, so yeah, excited about that. Should be a good time. I'm actually, never mind. Okay, so stats. Because I feel like people, when you're applying to college, you're always like, oh my god, can I get into this school? Oh my god, let me Google average ACT score for University of Kentucky, for Georgia, for Duke, whatever, blah blah blah. Just seeing, so you're like, oh, okay, if I got this, then maybe I'll have a better chance of getting in. So this is me like kind of doing that. Not saying that if you have what I have that you're guaranteed to get into some school. No, because honestly it is the most random thing ever. Case in point, UVA. Still salty about that one. So I applied to UVA early action. Didn't get in. All my stuff was like pretty, I don't want to say above, but like at or above for some of it what they said most things are. But since they're a state school, it's really hard to get in, and there was also someone else from my school already going there. So I did not get in. And people I know who maybe in the nicest way possible, we're on different levels, right? Okay. And they got in and I didn't. And you're like, interesting, right? So honestly, it's very random, which is why, I don't know, you kind of have to not really take it personally, even though it is, I mean, personal, because they're judging it literally based on like you. But anyway, um, because for me, applying to college was a very humbling experience, I will say. Whether it was having all my friends literally know where they're going in January. Literally every single one of my friends knows where they're going. And I just didn't. And having every single person, every adult I see, oh, where are you going to college? What are your plans for next year? Yeah, no. And then not getting into schools that you really wanted to go to. Humbling. Yeah. Also, I don't know if it's just at my school or at others, but for my school, people, like when you get into college, it's like announced to the school. I go to a very small private school. I don't know why they do this, but they'll like announce when people get into schools. So it can become very like competitive with, oh, they got into whatever school and I didn't. How did they get in and I didn't? Or I got in and someone else didn't. Why did I get in and they didn't? Blah, blah, blah. But made it really easy to like compare and stuff, which is also kind of stressful. But that's okay because I know where I'm going. We're all good. Okay, stats, because I don't know, I feel like when people talk about college, they're like, these are my stats. This is why I got into X school, even though like it's not just about like your stats, GPA, ACT. Though if you are applying, actually no, scratch that. For any school, I feel like it is one of the more important things, because of course you can be like well-rounded, but if you're well-rounded and you're like dumb as a rock, why would a school want you? You know? So kind of important, but also not like the most, like the only thing you're being judged on. So if your grades aren't perfect, if you didn't do well on a standardized test, don't fret if you are more well-rounded, but I'll talk about that later. Okay, so for GPA, my school does it out of 4, which I feel like for every school, and also depending on the state you're in, the way people do GPA is so different. So my GPA might not be the same as like the same thing for someone else's school, so I don't know. But my school does it out of a 4.0 scale, and then AP classes are weighted, honors classes are weighted. So my overall GPA for high school was 3.98 and my weighted GPA was a 4.3, I think, ish, somewhere around there. And then I got a 33 on the ACT, and that was after taking it 4 times. So I don't know if that was really worth it. I struggle on standardized tests. I would say I'm a fairly like smart person, but standardized tests, no. Okay, I cannot do geometry. I cannot. I had a horrible time learning geometry. I took it in 8th grade. Teacher, not good. So struggled with that. Just like math section, science section. Also grammar. No concept of grammar over here. So it was a lot of like re-teaching myself basic stuff. But it ended up being fine. And I didn't take the SAT. I know some people say, like, take both, see which one you do better on. But I was more like, no. Okay, we're just going to do the ACT, and I'm just going to get a good score on the ACT. And that's what I did, or tried to, at least. So for my Common App essay, I don't remember which prompt I chose, but somehow I wrote about my podcast. I don't know how. I don't even know if I answered the prompt. Probably not. But I talked about my podcast, and that was like my main thing. Honestly, I really struggled with like the essay and supplemental stuff, and I had someone helping me with it, but I still struggled, and it was really hard for me to understand like what I actually needed to do and how to write something well, but also get stuff across about me, about things that I do, about myself overall, which that was really hard for me. So I don't know how great my essay was. Probably not the best, but you know, that's okay. Apparently it was good enough. Good enough. But I applied to 11 schools. Okay. And that was just because I was so nervous. Because the year before, I knew a lot of people who had applied to only like 3 schools, 4 schools, and had only gotten into one of them. And I was like, oh my god, I don't want to be stuck with just one option. So I ended up applying to a lot of schools, even though some of the schools I applied to, I was like, okay, I would never go here. Under no circumstance would I go here. And it was like not even an option. So I'm like, did I really need to apply to that many schools? Probably not, but I do think it's a good idea to apply to a range of schools. So like safety schools, schools you know that you can get into, target schools, schools that are like right around your level, and then also like range schools, schools that it might be a stretch, but also you do have a possibility of getting into. It's just depends, right? So I would say I did not really get into the range schools that I applied to, TBH. Be honest about that. I got into 7 out of the 11 schools I applied to, and the 4 that I didn't get into were all, I was like, I don't know, it's a bit of a stretch. Turns out it was a bit of a stretch. It's okay. It's kind of funny. We can all laugh. But you know, that was okay. I think besides UVA that I didn't get into, that one I was like kind of surprised about, but like not really, but it was like the out of state thing that makes it hard. So like for state schools, keep that in mind, what ratio they need to have of in-state versus out of state. Because if you're trying to apply from out of state, it can be more difficult, especially when I think for UVA they needed like maybe 70% Virginians. And yeah, also I know so many people from where I live, literally in my town, so many people are going to UVA. So apparently they got a lot of out of state. But you know, that's okay. But I will say, worst experience I had, most humbling experience, most upsetting, was applying to Georgetown in DC. Okay, quick story time. So my older sister went to Georgetown in DC, and I have family that lives in DC. My siblings go to school in Arlington, which is really close. They're like right next, their school is right next to the bridge that crosses into DC. So a lot of people up there, and I visited Georgetown and I was like, oh my God, obsessed, love it. My all-time favorite school that I applied to, right? And I was like, oh my God, I need to go here. So applied, I did an interview, and I did early action. So December rolls around, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm gonna get in. Or like I was telling people, I was like, no, I'm not gonna get in. Even though in my mind I was like, okay, I'm set. You know, because I don't want to say like I'm totally gonna get in and then not get in, because that's embarrassing. But like I was telling people, oh no, I don't think I'll get in. I don't think so. But in my mind I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going. No, no, okay. So early action got deferred, which I was in December. I was like, oh my God, you know, it'd be so funny if I got rejected from the same school twice. Well, okay, April rolls around. Guess who got rejected from the same school twice? Me. Yeah, yeah. So that was an overall very humbling experience. But then again, I would say the overall experience I had actually applying to the school and doing the application was horrible. It honestly did not feel worth my time. Apparently was not worth my time. But that's okay. That is okay. But yeah, 10 out of 10, not a good experience. But yeah, for me though, I think my biggest struggle with applying to schools and more like deciding what schools I want to apply to was that I kept trying to find the perfect school. I kept trying to find the school where I walked on campus and I was like, oh my God, this place is for me. Oh my God. Like kind of having like an aha, oh my God, I'm in love moment. And that just didn't happen to me. And I was kind of waiting for like this big feeling where I would look around and be like, oh my gosh, I love it here. I can see myself here. And I think I set such a high standard for myself that when I visited every schools and I was like, it's fine. I mean, I like it. That I got really disappointed. I was like, is there something wrong with me? Why don't I like these schools? And that caused a lot of anxiety because I was like, oh my God, what schools am I applying to? Because I know some people have the issue where they're like, oh my gosh, love every school. No, opposite. I was like, I don't like any schools. How am I supposed to apply to a school? So, lesson of the day. When applying to schools, it does not have to be a school that is perfect. You do not have to have that, oh my God, I love it here moment. Because you can, like, after you apply, and if you're able to do so, you can always, like, look into it more, visit it, actually see what you think, learn more about the school, and then maybe you'll decide, okay, no, absolutely not. I hate this school. I would never go here. Maybe you're like, oh, like, this is a good school. And also, I kept having to tell myself, okay, Carmen, wherever you go, you're going to be fine. And that kind of helped me. But also, I was just so worried. I was like, what if I decide to go to the wrong school? What if I don't get into any schools? Oh my God, I'm not going to college. Oh my God, what's going to happen? You know, kind of like a little spiral thing, panic moment. So that was just a lot of stress this year. Very upsetting. So I know for some people, when they visit schools, they're like, oh my God, love, right? Where you look around and you're like, whoa, this is it. But if that doesn't happen to you, I'm just letting you know that's okay. Because I know, like in movies or my friends coming back from visiting a school and they're like, oh my God, I love it. I'm so obsessed, which of course, be obsessed with the school you're going to. And I'm really excited right now. But like earlier in the fall or in the winter, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, I like some schools, but I'm like, is it going to be okay for me? Am I going to be okay? And that was really worrying me, but everything turned out fine. So if you're someone who's like overthinking things, who kind of panics like me, just know that everything's gonna be okay. And then also, going off that, I feel like when you're a junior, everyone's like, oh my god, you have to start on college stuff early. You need to write your essay over the summer. You need to start looking at schools fall of your junior year. You need to do blah, 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 whatever. Be proactive. Okay. Yes, I understand that. If you're someone who's not proactive, maybe, yes, do that. But for me, okay, I didn't even start looking at schools. I mean, like, literally Googling schools until the summer. And I turned out fine, okay? And I literally turned in every single one of my applications in early, whether that was for an early action deadline or if it was for regular decision. Every single application I turned in before November 1st. And I started like doing my college research, doing all my stuff over the summer. So I promise you, you'll be fine. If it makes you feel more, I guess, or gives you peace of mind to start early, to make a spreadsheet, to be all put together, by all means, do that. I did in fact have a spreadsheet at one point. I don't even know what schools are on there. It's probably the most random thing. But when I first started thinking about schools, I was so set on going to school in New England, okay? I was like, oh my god, I love New England. I want to be in Massachusetts. I love it there. And then the more I looked into schools there, I was like, oh, absolutely not. Okay. I was looking at like Boston College, whatever, Boston University, smaller liberal arts schools like Amherst. And I really didn't like any of them. And then also I kept thinking, Carmen, you hate snow. Why are we trying to go north? And I think for me, I was just trying to get out of like, I don't know, quote unquote, the South, really, even though where I live, okay, yes, I live in Kentucky, but like where I live, it's more like Midwest vibes. But I was so set on that because my mom was the person who's like, okay, you're not allowed to apply to any schools in Kentucky. So I didn't apply to any schools there. And I was like sat on the mindset, okay, I need to get out. I need to go somewhere different. Even though I'm probably going to somewhere more southern. It's like Virginia. I don't know. Whatever. But I was so set on that I really didn't even consider looking at schools out west or looking at schools in the south because I was like, oh no, I'm gonna go north. And that just was, I guess, not the best for me because I was stressing so much because I was like, I don't like any schools, right? So be like, when you're applying to schools, know that your idea of what you want can change. Whether you're like, okay, maybe I thought I liked this location, no thanks. Or I thought I wanted a smaller school, no. I need to go to a big state school. I do not want to be trapped seeing the same like 2,000 people every day, right? So that's okay if what you want changes, but when considering a school, I think some things, or maybe one of the most important things to consider, obviously, is money. If that is an issue for you, and also it's just good to keep in mind. So besides that though, money, yeah, okay. And then I think the most important thing to consider is the people that go to the school. Like, what is the vibe on campus? And you need to visit campus to do this. Like, what are the people like? What's the overall vibe? Do people seem friendly? Are people looking happy? Or are people sitting there literally looking depressed, like they hate life? And think, okay, where do I want to be? What do I want to do? And what's the actual vibe on campus? Because that's what you have to think. Like, I'm going to have to be with these people. And even if you love the school, okay, is as academically rigorous as you want. It's in the perfect location. But if the people are awful, then it's like, do you really want to go there? So that's why I think for me, the biggest thing that I considered, this sounds so stupid, but the vibe, okay? Take into consideration the vibe of the school. And then also academic rigor. Is the school going to be too easy, too hard? Obviously, if you struggle with school, you're not going to be like, oh my god, I'm applying to Harvard. Oh my god, I'm going to go to Duke. But then again, it's like if you are an insanely smart genius person, you're maybe want to do something more challenging. Even though I feel like people are like, oh, go to a harder school. But like, schools are kind of like teaching you the same thing. I guess it's more about like the professors are different, obviously, but like you're learning the same thing. So I don't know. That whenever people talk about like prestigious schools, I'm like, okay, like you're paying more for like alumni benefits, for connections, for professors, you know, it's not necessarily, or you're paying for like the name of the school to say, okay, I went to Duke. Okay, I'm now a part of this alumni program, right? But anyway, also to consider social life. Do you want to go to a school that's big on sports? Do you want to be tailgating? Do you want to join a sorority, a fraternity? Do you want to go to a party school? Do you like that? What is the social scene like? I think is also another important thing to consider. Not that it's necessarily an end-all be-all, but I will say I did rule out a school based on the percentage of people that participate in Greek life. I am not necessarily looking to be in a sorority. I mean, I'd consider it, but I'm not 100% about that. But I didn't want to be at a school where I would feel obligated to do so, where the majority of people, like over 60-70%, are a part of Greek life, and that's like the only thing to do at that school. So I ruled that school out. And another thing to consider, location. But again, I think it's always good to look at schools all over and also consider like how close do you want to be to home? Do you want to go to like the university where you grew up? Do you want to go somewhere an hour away where you can drive home? Or do you want to be totally across the country? And of course you need to consider like financial status with that. And then also, I think another thing to remember is that when applying to college, you need to have like a good sense of yourself and your own abilities and what you bring to the table, okay? Because you don't want to underestimate yourself and just apply to all these like safety schools. I mean, maybe you do, I don't know, depending on what you're trying to get out of college, I guess. But don't underestimate yourself. But again, also don't overestimate your abilities. Personally, for me, I might have gotten a little high and mighty in my head thinking, oh my god, I am amazing. Every school should want me. I'm smart. My test scores are decent. I have a podcast. That was literally my thing. I was like, I have a podcast. I'm getting in anywhere. No. Okay? No. And that might have been my fault. Yeah. So don't overestimate yourself. Okay? But also, don't underestimate yourself. Like if you're someone who's doesn't like to brag about your abilities, even though you're like the best person in the world, you're a genius, you're super kind, you do a lot for the community, then don't underestimate yourself. But again, also, if you're someone like me where you're like, oh my god, I do something that's different, right, from other people, even though so many people have podcasts, that I'm like, okay, like I have a successful podcast, I've made money, I have thousands of people listening, I'm quote unquote like Instagram famous, like whatever, then I'm like, yeah, I'm totally set. Who wouldn't want me? Apparently four schools did not want me. But have a good sense of your own abilities, but don't let that stop you from applying to harder schools that you're like, I don't know, kind of iffy. I mean, you might as well try. But again, maybe don't apply to all Ivy Leagues if you're not the most academically sharp person, maybe you don't really do that much outside of school, your biggest activity is like watching Netflix, like honestly same, but so maybe don't do that, because I know someone who applied majorly, or I don't know the word, like the majority of schools he applied to were very prestigious Ivy League schools, and this person kept like not getting in, and they were like posting about it, which is kind of strange, but would post like whenever they didn't get in, and I'm pretty sure they said they got into like 2 out of 13 schools. And that's a good example of overestimating your abilities, okay? Because I feel like that shouldn't happen and you should always apply to a range of schools. But again, don't apply to all extremely hard schools and then be like, oh my god, I have no other option than to go to like UK, right? And you want to have options, even if it's just 2. You want to have an option because you don't want to be like, oh, I'm stuck here, unless you do ED, but that's like because you like a school. But speaking about ED, okay, I wish, looking back, that I had done ED to a school, okay? Some schools don't offer it, but I will suggest in most cases it's good to apply early. Not always, but talk to a college counselor if possible. If your school has like a free college counselor, or maybe if they don't, like just doing some Google research. But I wish I did ED. That is the one thing I will say that I regret. That I wish I ED'd to a school that I probably wouldn't have gotten in otherwise. But just so you can at least ED, and if it's like a more range school, you don't get in, okay, fine. I'll go to a school that's more like Target that I liked as well. But my thing for ED was that I was so set on having a school that I was 100% in love with, 100% certain. And I wish I didn't do that, okay? Maybe if I did this the other way around, I'd be like, oh my god, don't do ED. But looking back, I'm like, okay, I wish I just did it even if I wasn't 100% certain about a school. Because again, I'm like, I'll be fine anywhere. And I just kind of wish that I did that. So if you're thinking about doing ED, do it. Literally every single one of my friends did ED, knew where they were going in December, didn't have to worry about college after that. And it's so easy and you're done. And you know where you're going and you're like set. No. So that was not me. But I do wish that I had done that looking back. But yeah, also when applying to schools, do an interview if it is offered, okay? If they don't have an interview, if they're like, send in one of those video things, do the video thing, whatever. But my only thing is, if you're like Carmen, I cannot speak to people. I am so socially awkward. I don't know how to talk to people. I can't answer questions on the spot. If you think in any way, shape, or form that you having an interview is going to make you seem worse, don't do it. But I feel like in most cases, it'll just like add to your application, and it just adds another thing for people to consider. And overall, I think my favorite interview that I interviewed with most of my schools. I think almost like more than half of them I did an interview, which in the fall when I was doing it, I was like, oh my god, this is horrible. My first interview was bad. I ended up not even applying to the school because I didn't like it. And after the interview, I realized, okay, this place is definitely not for me. And I was supposed to like visit the campus too, and I ended up not going. I withdrew my application, but anyway. So after you do it a few times, it kind of helps, improve your skills. But I suggest like doing some research, looking up interview questions, make sure you look nice. But the funniest interview that I had was my William and Mary interview, and it just was the best vibes. One, it was just so strange because the interview was like in the middle of the day, like, and I was at school, so I did my interview in my car, in the senior parking lot, and it was really hot outside, so my car was really hot, and I have a small black car, and we talked about my dog, and I mean, obviously we talked about me, but it was just like the best vibes, so that was fun. Or I've had interviews where it's like with an older person where it was more serious, and I was like, oh my god, this is so stressful. Or it's like with a really more prestigious school where I was like, oh my god, literally gonna cry, this is so stressful. But ended up being fine. I feel like I do better talking to people, or I look better talking to people than I do on paper. I don't know. Maybe that's just me having a high sense of myself. And again, that was part of my downfall, right? Applying to college, I did overestimate my abilities, and then I was like, oh my god, I'm literally gonna be stuck going to school in Ohio. Which, nothing wrong with Ohio, but that is not where I wanted to be, okay? So, but you know, it's okay. It's okay. Everything is fine. I feel like some things that no one talks about when applying to college is how freaking long it feels to wait to hear back. Because as I said, I applied to most of my schools before November 1st. Actually, no, I think it was literally every single one. I just turned all mine in with the early action deadline. Even if I was doing regular decision, I just wanted it all done by November, which was really great. Loved doing that. 10 out of 10 recommend. But considering that I did November and then I didn't hear back from most schools until April, waiting is so long. And I'm a fairly patient person, okay? But when people start asking you every day, oh, Carmen, where are you going to school? Oh, Carmen, have you decided on college? Stressful. Also, like I said, all my friends did ED, so they all knew where they were going. They were all like excited about their school, which great for them, happy for them. But I was like so stressful because then I feel more pressure about knowing where I'm gonna go. So no one really talks about that. Just kind of like anxiety about that. And then also something that I want people to like think about, I don't know, because when I was applying to schools doing like my supplementals, I was like, oh my god, I'm so bored, oh my god, I don't want to do this anymore. So I just like wrote something like blah 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 blah, and it was like not the best, and I was like, you know what, I'm done, I'm so sick of this. So I would just turn it in. Do not recommend. Okay, actually spend time on your essays, on your supplementals, even when you're frustrated, even when you're bored, even when you've looked at it 6 times and you're like, this is crap, have to restart, okay? Redo it until it's good. Have other people check it. Have your friends, have a college counselor, have an English teacher, parent, whatever. Have someone else look at it. Because I know for me, I really, like I said, I really struggled with that, but I do wish I had spent more time on my writing because I feel like I could have done it better looking back, especially on some of the schools that I didn't get into. I feel like I should have spent more time on something, but again, can't really change things. It's all done. Also, want to say that you can absolutely adore a school online. You can love it looking at their website, doing a virtual tour. And then when you visit it, you're like, this is not the place for me. And that's totally okay. And also, it can be vice versa. Maybe you hate a school online. It looks disgusting. And then you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, love. And that's fine too. But I do suggest, if possible, visiting the campus, actually like going on a tour, walking around the area of the school, like the city, town, wherever it is, see what you can actually do there. And just think about that as well. And I also want to say, I kind of already touched on this, but people always say that like grades aren't the only thing that matters, which is true because they are. Like grades are important, but again, it's like not the only thing that matters, but also it is important, but also it's not. Like it's, I don't even know. But I think it's also important to be well-rounded because do you know how many people there are that have straight A's, that are taking 5 AP classes, that did well on their ACT? Even the other day, I was at the beach, chilling, sitting. This girl starts screaming. She's, I guess, maybe a junior or something. And she's like, oh my gosh, I got my ACT score back. I got a 35. Okay, some random girl on the beach. I was sitting, jaw dropped. I was like, oh my god, how do these people exist? And she was saying how she got like a 36 on the math and a 35 on everything else. So, like, a lot of people have really good test scores. A lot of people have a 4.0. So, that's when you have to consider, I guess, what makes you different. So that's the things you do outside of school. Obviously, it helps to have a good grade, and that might even, like, you might even need that just to be considered. But you need to be well-rounded. So what clubs are you doing? Do you do community service? Are you playing a sport? Are you a singer, a dancer, an artist? What are you doing outside of school? What are you doing, like, a part of school? Like, are you active in your school community? Are you active in your broader, like, town, city community? What are you doing outside of school? And I think that's another important thing, because maybe you're really good at, like, fencing and you're like an Olympic fencer. Maybe you're an artist and do art shows and galleries. Maybe you're a really good philanthropist and have raised a bunch of money for a cause, whatever it might be. These are things that add to kind of differentiate yourself. God, I cannot speak. And I think that is another thing to consider. So yeah, wow, okay. So college today. Honestly, college making me, like, why can I not talk today? This is really a struggle. Thinking about college, like, genuinely makes me want to vomit, but also I'm, like, excited. I don't know. I'm definitely gonna need to, like, invest more in anti-nausea medicine, I will say. I just get, like, so anxious about things, and then I get sick. Like, I can literally make myself sick. One time I gave myself a cold. Don't ask. I don't know. I'm magical, okay, apparently. But yeah, so college today. But make sure to follow me at the Girly Girl Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest. And also leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also remember to check out the link in the description of this episode to get 20% off Parade by clicking the link using code GirlyGirl, and get the softest underwear ever, period. Thank you all for listening, and if you're applying to college, just know it's gonna be okay. It'll all work out in the end, whether you think you 100% need to go to the school, and then if you don't get in, I promise, it is not the end of the world. You will be fine. And also, if you end up going to school and you don't like it, guess what? Oh my god, transfer. Yep, people also don't talk about that. You can transfer, which I don't know why we're acting like college is the biggest deal ever when you can literally transfer. You can literally change your mind. Okay, so think about that before you panic. Me saying this because I have done a lot of panicking over the past year, but everything's fine because I'm going to college. So, yay. Okay, see y'all next week. Love you. Bye.